Good evening. Can you hear me? Test, test. Is it working? Good evening. Our meeting is going to be delayed for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? Sorry for the inconvenience.
The mic, huh?
And you can't, the bad thing is now is you can't hear. Good evening. Welcome to the Churchill County Planning Commission meeting, July the 12th, 2023. The time is 7:15 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Second item of business, Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Picotti, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Agenda item number 3, public comment. None heard. Agenda item number 4, verification of the posting of the agenda.
The agenda was posted on July 6th of 2023 between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. in accordance with NRS statutes and Churchill County Code.
Agenda item 5, approval of agenda as submitted.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted or revised.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Bunyard and seconded by Commissioner Hyde for agenda to be approved. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item number 6, verification of notification of all landowners in accordance with NRS and the Churchill County Consolidated Development Code.
All efforts were made to ensure that the notification was sent to all landowners.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, approval of the minutes of the meeting held on June 14th, 2023. Can I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the minutes of the meeting held on June 14th, 2023.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Bunyard, seconded by Commissioner Hyde for approval of the minutes on June the 14th of 2023. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item 8, old business. Item A, review of special use permit for rail-based services facility previously granted to Omaha Track Incorporated on property located at 1006 Nevada Street, Hazen. Director Spross, do you have comments on this matter? And while you're commenting, would the applicant like to come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as stated, this is a one-year review of a special use permit. The use listing is a rail-based service facility. The applicant is Omaha Track, and the owner is TRP Properties. The site's located at 1006 Nevada Street, which is 3 parcels, APN 009-251-74, -86, and -88, which is a total of 121.23 acres. The designation in the master plan is industrial and Hazen planning area, and the zoning is industrial and A10. For the sake of those commissioners that weren't here in July when this was granted, I'm just going to give a little bit of background. So this subject property is currently being operated by Omaha Track primarily for its railroad tie sorting operation. The site includes smaller functions such as handling railroad steel, track, and fasteners, etc. The facility requires a special use permit on multiple grounds. The rail-based service required an SUP, and uses that may impact public health and safety require an SUP, and this facility will store large quantities of very flammable creosote-coated rail ties outside of where they are more susceptible to combustion. The operation started up in mid-2017 with the understanding that it would eventually obtain a special use permit. The applicant did not pursue the special use permit until prompted by the planning director after receiving complaints by neighbors, TCID, fire marshal, and the traveling public. At that time, extreme levels of stacking railroad ties had occurred, likely with more than 500,000 ties. It was understood early on that a road maintenance agreement would be needed, but that was deferred to this special use permit process. In March of 2019, a special use permit was approved, with most of the operations being east of the railroad triangle described under the site heading below, and I'll get to that in a minute, with all operations located on the 2 easternmost parcels. The west parcel, adjacent to the community of Hazen, was labeled as a buffer between Hazen and the site operations. In June of 2019, the company requested an alteration to the SUP to allow the use of a portion of the west parcel lying east of the main site road, which runs from the site entrance southeast through the westernmost parcel. Subsequently, the company has requested to place minor site elements west of the road, such as the well and the water tank. Current plans continue to propose additional operations west of the site road. In addition, it was learned that a substantial amount of rail, steel, track, and fasteners was being stored north of the track, which was not part of the previous SUP. The current application results from the fact that the previous SUP had a layout that was never implemented, so it essentially expired. The application proposes a different layout that more simply permits the existing operations with some new short-term facilities installations, such as the permanent office. That background was taken directly from the staff report of the July 2022 meeting, which is where the applicant came in for the special use permit application, which subsequently was approved. So just some recent permitting and the reason for the one-year review. The current special use permit was issued in July of 2022. Shortly after approval, a fire at the facility consumed most of the entire stock of ties. The county initiated the revocation proceedings in order to modify the conditions of approval, especially to incorporate many more fire protection measures. The result was a stipulated agreement with revised conditions of approval that was approved by the Planning Commission in December of 2022. This is a one-year review. It's a condition based on that July 2022 date. The point of a one-year review is to ensure that the code requirements and conditions of approval are met. If the project is not in compliance, it may result in the initiation of a permit revocation proceedings. Omaha Track provided a status report on meeting the requirements, including support materials for progress on some of the items. Many of the conditions have not been completed. It appears that the company did not want to invest in constructing facilities required by the conditions of approval until they received clearance from the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection that the site was not contaminated. A letter from the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection dated June 30th, 2023 was provided and is included in your packet. So I just want to go over briefly the stipulated agreement conditions of approval. These are the conditions that were required by that stipulated agreement, which was approved in December. So number one, the permit is subject to review and renewal on or about July 12th, 2023 to ensure compliance with county code and the conditions of the special use permit. Except where otherwise stated, all conditions are effective immediately upon approval by the Planning Commission. That's why we're here today. So the Planning Commission review is in its response to this condition. As noted below, some conditions have not been completed. Number two, the facility shall operate within the limit of 150,000 railroad ties, equivalent to 30,000 cubic yards of combustible material stored on site at one time. All railroad ties must be stored within designated storage zones in a manner substantially similar to that shown on the site plan, which is Exhibit A to the stipulated agreement. The staff comment on that is they're in compliance, though there are other limits on numbers of ties that are out of compliance, and I'll get to that in a minute. Number three, there shall be no material storage north of the main line, and staff comment was that they are in compliance. The applicant indicates that materials north of the tracks have been moved to the main operations area. Number four, there shall be no rail spur expansion on lot number 3. The staff comment was that's an ongoing requirement, but it is in compliance. Number 5, there shall be no material handling or storage on the portion of Lot 1 west of the site road, which is adjacent to Hazen. Staff comment is ongoing requirement and it is in compliance. Number 6, the operation of the rail yard across parcel lines is permitted. Building construction is not allowed across property lines. If parcels are sold so they are under separate ownership, this permit will be void and a new permit must be established to address the new ownership and operation changes. Staff comment is that's an ongoing requirement and it is in compliance. Number 7, the dust and mud track out onto the road shall be controlled by providing an all-weather driving surface, whether gravel, paving, etc., for all driving paths used in the operation, including roads, driveways, parking lots, and loading areas. General dust abatement on site shall be provided by wood chips, shards, water, and dust palliatives. Staff comment is that is out of compliance. Only the old highway roadbed is graveled. No changes have been made for this requirement, though the applicant states that there are plans to do so with the building construction. Number 8, the applicant shall abide by the road agreement with the County Road Department regarding the use and maintenance of Nevada Street and the use of Hazen Avenue. The staff comment is that is an ongoing requirement and it is in compliance. Number 9, the applicant shall comply with the written fire protection plan signed by the fire marshal and shall implement the plan in accordance with the schedule authorized by the fire marshal as shown as Exhibit B of the stipulated agreement. Fire marshal may require updates to the plan to ensure the fire safety of employees and the public, and the applicant shall implement all updated requirements within 30 days of requirement by the fire marshal. The staff comment is it is out of compliance. While most of the fire protection plan requirements have been implemented, the most important item has not been implemented, and that's the construction of the office and the shop to provide a freeze-proof location to store the water trucks. It is tied to the allowance for increasing the number of stored ties over 50,000 and no later than this annual review. Ties have recently exceeded this limit. The one-year review has arrived and no building has been constructed. And a note is that the office and restrooms are also a requirement for the permanent place of the business. Number 10, scrap material shall be stored in containers set forth in the plan. Debris and scrap material shall not accumulate in substantial quantities on the site. Containers must be shipped out within 90 days of being filled with material. There shall be no more than 15 containers on the site at any time. Staff comment is that is an ongoing requirement and it is in compliance. Number 11, the site must be constructed and operated in conformance with the county, state, and federal laws and regulations, including requirements for necessary permits. The following requirements are made pursuant to county code and or state or federal laws and regulations. Item A, all non-tie outdoor storage must be screened. It is recommended that such storage be consolidated in a single area and provided with a screened fence. Staff comment is that is out of compliance. No screening has been installed for non-tie materials, though the applicant states that they are waiting until groundwork is done. Item B, no additional signage may be erected except as previously approved by the Planning Commission. The staff comment is that is in compliance since signage is not required. The previously proposed and approved signage has not been installed. The applicant has provided a picture and indicates that it will be installed after the dirt work is done. Item C, landscaping is required by July 12, 2023. 2 parking lot trees shall be provided near the office and irrigated. Street landscaping shall be provided at the entrance to the Reno Highway and along Reno Highway frontage. Friction zone landscaping shall be provided along the west property line, which is the Hazen frontage. Landscaping may include signage, plants with irrigation, decorative rocks, boulders, decommissioned equipment of interest, etc. Staff comment is that is out of compliance. No parts of the landscaping or friction zone requirements have been met. The applicant indicates it will be done with the building. Item D, a 7-foot sound barrier, berm, or wall shall be provided along the west property line, which is the Hazen frontage, by July 12, 2023. The barrier shall be incorporated into the landscaping. A grading permit is required. Staff comment is that it is out of compliance. No part of the sound barrier requirement has been implemented. The applicant indicates that it will be done with the building. Item E, a parking area shall be provided for employees and visitors by July 12, 2023. There must be provided at least 25 parking spaces and one must be ADA accessible, either asphalt or concrete. If staffing increases in the future, parking shall be increased to provide 1 space per employee to the maximum number of employees scheduled to be working at one time. All ADA requirements must be followed as it relates to the number of ADA accessible parking spaces. Staff comment is that is out of compliance. No part of the parking requirement has been implemented. The applicant indicates it will be done with the building. F, all lighting shall meet the Churchill County Code dark sky standards to direct lighting down and screen it from upward or horizontal projection. Staff comment is that is in compliance. Current lighting meets this requirement. Staff will check the lighting installed with the office when it is installed. G, impact fees and water dedication requirements must be met. Staff comment is that is out of compliance. Since the applicant indicates that the building permit for the office will be submitted soon, staff recommends that it is acceptable to collect the fees at that time. And finally, number 12, operations shall be conducted in a manner that does not create a nuisance, whether public or private, under the Nevada law or Churchill County Code. Staff comment is, it is in compliance. The operation of the facility is much safer since the permit was approved last year. Objectionable features to neighbors and the traveling public have been greatly reduced since the last permit, though objections to transloading rail cars along the Hazen Town frontage still remain. Note that such transloading is on railroad company property, not on the Omaha Track property, and the rail car movement is under the control of the railroad, not Omaha Track. So those are the conditions that were part of the stipulated agreement, and staff has got a recommendation. We received some information from the applicant that the building will be complete by the end of November of this year. So staff recommends that that this permit be reviewed at the end of November with two conditions. One of those conditions is that I receive monthly progress reports from the applicant so that I can determine that the progression of the building erection and the building construction, that deadline will be met. And if I feel that the schedule is slipping, that at that point in time, we can begin the revocation process of the SUP. And number two, in the fire plan, there was some milestones and conditions that had to be met in order for the applicant to increase the railroad ties. The most important one was if the applicant wanted to exceed the 50,000 railroad ties, that the building that would house the 2 dedicated water trucks would be complete. At this point in time, there's over 100,000 ties at the facility, and the building has not been started. So it's also recommended by staff that effective immediately, no more ties get brought onto that property, and the tie quantity gets reduced to 50,000 ties until that building is constructed. Those are our recommendations. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure you have some questions for the applicant.
Thank you, Director Spross. Would the applicant state your name and address for the record? Both parties, please. Push the microphone button.
Yeah, James Sulia. My address?
Yes. Your business address is fine.
Oh. 1006 Nevada Street. Hazen.
Meg Ridge.
Mag?
Meg, M-E-G, Ridge, 1006 Nevada Street.
Thank you.
You're
Do you have any comments you'd like to add to the presentation by the director?
No, everything you said about the building part is correct. We were put at a halt by the state of Nevada until all the testing come back. No groundwork could be done. No cover could be put down until they tested all the wells, all the dirt, all the samples for contamination. They all come back clean. This happened 2 weeks ago. That's when we got our approval. The building has been purchased. It's a 40 by 100 building that will be put in there that will construct of our shop to be able to house the water trucks, as he's referring to. The one issue that I did not know about until right now was the water truck issue. We did not go over our count without permission from the fire department. We are at 101,000 ties right now. That was current. We just hit that 2 days ago. We have a full-time security guard, 24-hour service that patrols the yard, which was one of our requirements. We have two water trucks that sit there that do not need to be housed in the summertime. They do need to be housed in the winter, and they will be, which is what we wanted to get last year. But we can't, to reduce down to 50,000 and tell my customer, which is the Union Pacific, that we can't bring them in no more with the amount of money we're going to put into the yard. I don't know if that can work. I mean, what we're looking at investing in the Hazen yard is over $1 million in just what so far we've got, and not including what we've already done, after the fire that we've fixed.
Okay, is there any other comment there? Okay, so in the agreement from 2022 is agreed upon to only have 50,000 ties on the property at any given time if the water supply was not sufficient. Is that correct?
50,000 ties could be exceeded if the building was erected,
And that's the
complete.
only way it could be.
Or the building had to be completed by this meeting. They had 1 year. So there was 2 milestones that needed to be met Either the building had to be done before this meeting, or if they wanted to exceed the tie count of 50,000 ties, the building had to be complete.
Okay, and then the amount of ties they could have is, whose decision is that at any given time? Is that the county or is that the fire department?
They are allowed, once the building is up, they are allowed up to 150,000 ties. That's the way that it was written. But the building had to be erected and complete for them to exceed the 50,000 ties.
Okay. Sir, you made it clear that on the property at this moment is 100,100 ties, and you had permission from the fire department to do so. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything we've done to this point has been at the guidance of the fire department. They come out and see us weekly.
Okay,
We asked if that was okay, if we had the 2 water trucks without the building. We couldn't put the building up at the time. There was nowhere to construct the building. I mean,
Okay.
we could put a Quonset hut to cover two water trucks if that seems to be the issue. But then we're just putting something down that we're going to have temporary or a permanent one in November.
I understand. And then, do we have anything in writing from the fire department that says you can have 100,000 ties on the property?
Oh, yeah.
I don't have anything in writing. They were out last Friday. They were also out Monday. Spoke with them when Mitch was there a few months ago. I explained where we were. He said he was going to talk to you guys and get back to me. He didn't. I know he went on vacation. Alex came out on Friday. Alex came out again on Monday. They are aware of the tie count. They said we're doing everything that they have asked. They have no problems with where we are. They wanted to be here tonight, but they have another meeting as well.
Okay. So did the tie count of 50,000 exceed prior to having any conversation with the fire department?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
As soon as we were there,
okay,
I let them know. I've been in contact with Lorelei also.
okay. Director Spross, has the fire department communicated with you verbally or in writing about having an agreement with the customer?
I met with I called the fire department on Friday and asked them to go visit the site. I met with them today. Unfortunately, Mitch is the one that's been going out to do all the site visits, and he is on vacation.
Okay,
He did, there were several pictures taken that show the ties exceeding the limits of the storage areas. I know over the last several months, there's been some storage areas that have been added. They're kind of difficult to see. We've requested that the poles be painted yellow so that they would be easy to see from the highway. That wasn't done. But lately, on several of the storage piles, they have exceeded the ends of the allowable storage. My concern is the applicant had stated that they didn't want to put money into the property until the NDEP had cleared the investigation to make sure there was no contaminated soil. On May 1st, we received an inventory from MEG that said they had 37 ties on there, which was well within what was allowed. On June 9th, we received the May inventory, and they were at 62,000 ties. So they had exceeded the allowable inventory before they received the letter from NDEP. So they were already proceeding with exceeding the 50,000, knowing that they weren't going to put that building up until they received the letter from NDEP. And then it continued to grow. On July 3rd, we got June's. We were at 83,000 when the fire department went out on Friday. They were at 97,000, and as you heard from the applicant, now they're at 101,000. I mean, we put these conditions in place because of what happened last July. These conditions were agreed to. The applicant understood that they could not exceed the 50,000 ties. And if you were waiting for a response from NDEP before you invested any money in that site, you should have stayed below the 50,000 ties. But the applicant continued to grow that inventory, to me, with disregard to what the conditions had said.
Hey,
Would you like to rebuttal?
Yes. The way he's putting it is that we went over 50,000 ties with no regard for you or your community. And that's furthest from the truth. There is a fire plan that was put in place and implemented, like he said, in December. That fire plan at that time, every inch of that fire plan has been organized, planned, and followed. The building is not up to house 2 water trucks. That's the only thing that has not happened. We did not wait for Nevada to give us a clearance. We were moving ahead at all times. Nevada kept showing up, telling us not to cover this, don't touch that, we can't do this. So they were putting a hold on us because at that time they thought the water was contaminated and would not let us do any more. That's why they had to come in and drill 20 wells and do all kinds of well sampling. This all happened in December. This original thing was in July, and now we're talking about something that happened in December, and now here we are again in July. So we only had a 6-month time frame from there. It was never our intentions to do anything behind anyone's back. That's why we worked with Mitch religiously to make sure that things were within play. That's why we have full-time employees that are security guards. That's part of the requirement for the over 50,000 ties. Our SUP stated 150,000 ties. The only thing we don't have is a heated garage for 2 water trucks during the winter. We have all the water trucks, we've done everything they've asked for. As far as the columns are, they are painted yellow. If they're not bright enough, I'll have them paint them brighter. But the reason we are out of compliance with our ties as far as where the poles are is because when Mitch and his group created that plan, they created it for 150,000 ties. The plan itself, the way we have to lay it out, according to the fire department recommendation, will only hold 96,000 ties. We can't, there's no other place the way they want it recommended, not with 200 feet between ties and 400 feet in front of all the ties. And to stay away from a fuel line and a water ditch. So that's what we're trying to do. We're confined to one little tiny area. We've put ourselves in this issue. So at no time were we ever disrespectful or trying to do something against the requirements. Meg works with him every single week. They come out. We've invited people to come out. If this had been an issue and brought to our attention, then something could have been done. But we didn't go over 50,000 with no intention of ever building.
Thank you. Do you have any comment, ma'am?
Well, so the only thing that I would like to say is when we got to out of compliance, I had spoken with Lorelei, I had spoken with Mitch, and they both said, if something happens, just send me an email, let me know, we'll go from there. So every time that happened, I've sent them an email and let them know, and they said, thank you very much. Do you know when you'll be back into compliance? And I told them, another thing that I'd like to say, we have contractors that grade all the ties for us. I normally have 4 to 5 working at a time. Unfortunately, in the last few weeks, 2 of their machines went down, 1 went home for personal reasons. So I went from 4 banders to 1. Production obviously slowed down. I am now back up to 4 banders. I will have another one on Friday, so I'll be back up to 5. I told Lorelei that as soon as I see how much they're producing every day, I can give her a better idea of how long it'll take us to get back in compliance as far as the rows.
Thank you. So it's a clear understanding, the agreement that was agreed to maybe by you or your superiors was 50,000 ties on the property with appropriate water and the appropriate building. And the
That's correct.
50,000 is tied to the construction of the building, not just the water.
No, it's correct, but it
So
was
we're-
also speculated that Mitch was in charge of that, and if we worked with him and he had other ideas, we could do that. It's also speculated in there, or written in that fire plan, that I have to have a 24-hour fire protection system that is electronic that would call 911 and dispatch people out. With Mitch's guidance, he says you can have a full-time security guard that'll do the same thing. So Mitch was not overriding his own plan, but he was helping us able to work through what we were working through. So everything that's there, and I wish Mitch was here, was talked to and, guided by Mitch.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I just want to clarify, I didn't say that you did this with disregard to the community. I stated that you did this with disregard to what was written in here. And this does state in here, so this was not done after this was written. This was written in here. Fire detection system or a fire watchman for non-working hours have to be implemented. So this wasn't something that was done after with consultation of Mitch. This was done before this was put together with consultation with Mitch. So I will say that Mitch and Meg have been working closely to make sure things are being done. But ultimately, there's a set of conditions in here that need to be met, and those conditions have not been met.
Okay.
Why
That's
did
why we're
nobody
here.
ever say, I don't understand why, when we went over 50,000 ties, you knew about it, Mitch knew about it, we got the permission to do it, and the building was not why didn't you just say no? No, you don't have the building.
Well,
Where was that so it was like, go ahead and just keep doing it, and we'll just keep watching you and see how bad you fail on this. Because we kept talking to Mitch, and he kept saying, everything looks great, keep going, we don't have an issue with it. If we had an issue with it, we would have done, I would have put a Quonset hut up and parked a truck under it.
The office and the shop that's required as part of this is also required as part of the SUP. So the office needs to be, it needs to go up as part of the SUP.
But the office isn't part of the 50,000 ties. You're
It's
correct.
not, but it's a requirement of the
You're
SUP.
correct. And the office should be up. And it would have been up if I hadn't had this disaster that we had.
we understand that, and we understand your concerns. We understand both sides of this scenario. The agreement was made by your company to only have 50,000 ties on the property, okay? You knew that. So when you started exceeding that, shame on you. That's all I can say, because you wrote and signed off on this agreement. Next, the fire marshal does have the authority to grant more ties on the property, yes or no, Director Spross?
That's correct. If he feels it's being done in a safe manner, he has the authority to do that.
Okay. Mr. Patterson?
Yes, Chair, Mr. Chair, Dean Patterson, for the record, I did text Mitch Young, the fire marshal, about the question, and he said he's been trying to work with them since they're temporarily over 50,000. It was never a carte blanche to stay over without all the items listed. So he was apparently working with them on a temporary basis, and then it would theoretically go back down to whatever the limit number is based on the building. Lorelei, I see, is nodding her head, so maybe she can add whatever knowledge she has.
Thank you. Does the code compliance office have a comment?
Yes, I do. Lorelei Lee Barron for the record, co-compliance official. So I have the fire safety statement plan in hand. And it specifically states, as an alternative to early fire detection system, a fire watchman may be employed to monitor the facility for fire during non-operational hours. The fire watchman may not have competing duties that would inhibit the ability to perform the function of a fire watchman. This is in lieu of a fire detection system. However, it does not negate the conditions of the special use permit, because part of what Mitch and I have been working on is and the communication is important, so I do applaud Omaha Track for communicating to Mitch and I in regard to when incidents happen, be it out of their control, which seems to have happened twice in the last 6 months, or a situation where machines have malfunctioned. They report it to us, they inform us of that. It has got to the point where it has exceeded it, at least 2, maybe 3 times in the course of inspections. And as a fire safety prevention, it was to reduce, to get the ties down to 50,000 eventually, is working with them in their situations and taking count so that the reduction gets completed, and then thus the importance of encouraging and maintaining a watchman on site while there is that 50,000 overage.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add something to this to maybe add some clarity. So the stipulated agreement has 2 pieces as it relates to tie quantity. The first is condition number 2, which sets the limit at 150,000 ties. And that condition, as we've discussed, is in compliance. The second condition, as it relates to ties, is actually part of the fire safety plan. The fire safety plan is developed by the fire marshal. It can be amended by the fire marshal if that is his intention, and that would affect the special use permit. That being said, I think the questions that should be made at this point in time are, if the decision has already been made that it can temporarily go over 50,000 ties. What is the plan to get under 50,000 ties? What is the timeline for that? And in working with the fire marshal, and in particular, where we have a home or a building that needs to be built by, I believe, end of November or something when freezing time is coming up, what's the situation going to be if that building ends up not being either completed on time for whatever reasons could arrive? Is there going to be any fire concerns at that time? And so I think those questions are pertinent at this point in time, and I would direct those towards the applicant.
Would the applicant like to respond to those questions of the council?
You bet. So that's why our goal is November. So originally, the purpose of the building is to keep the water trucks from freezing so they can be full in case there's a fire in the middle of winter. That was the purpose of the water trucks. That's why we did what we did and set it up this way. We have expedited, since the state gave us the okay that we could go to work and do what we needed to do as far as putting buildings in, doing everything we had to, roads, shrubbery, landscaping, that everything was clear. We've expedited it. Is why we purchased the building. We're in the process of putting the plans together, filing for it, and our goal, and it's a very strong goal, is to have that ready by November so we can park the 2 water trucks in there all winter and have offices and everywhere for the people to go. The building is a steel building. It'll erect quickly. We've already contacted a local contractor who's been part of it. He says he can get the building put up. So really it comes down to the concrete and at that time all the dirt work that's gonna need to be done. So what we're asking for is to allow us to continue on our SUP the way we are. If we need to reconvene like he would like to in November to see that that building is done, the 2 water trucks will be inside when it comes time for freezing, there'd be no issue for us to accomplish that. We could get to that point. Right now, the only thing I could do is I could buy a small little Quonset hut or a little garage and put it up and park 2 water trucks inside of it. But they're not going to freeze this time of year. And right now, they're being used all the time because we're having to water and keep up with the dust abatement that we have out there.
Thank you. Meg, do you have?
I just wanted to add that by November, the tie count will also be way down.
Yeah, railroads are low, so right now
Okay.
they're in the
This
area
is
which
our
you guys have
busy-
seen
We
all the
understand.
ties laying around, that's why they're here.
We understand.
Yeah.
And then, for clarification, we understand the fire marshal can exceed the limit. Does your company have anything in writing that says that you can go above the 50,000 at this moment? You know, that would be a good, from now moving forward, I
Yeah.
would contact the fire marshal's office, get something in writing that says where you can be for the moment. Is that agreeable, Director Sprouse?
Yes, and since my conversation with Meg on Friday, we've emailed back and forth, and she has asked me if I want to be included on the correspondence that goes back and forth, and I asked her if I could be, so that we'll have more than just Lorelei and Mitch involved in any correspondence that goes on.
We understand. So we understand that you're, where you stand. We're a third party, so, bringing something in writing that says fire marshal says I can do this, which supersedes the agreement, we have
Yeah.
no concern.
When he returns from vacation, can we ask him for that? Because he has been out there, and the purpose of the building is to keep the trucks from freezing, not for the summertime.
Yes. Well, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. You could maybe send him an email soon and request something in writing, so you can pass it along to Director Sprouse. So we have that for the record.
And I would just like to say that when they came out for that initial visit, Mitch and Alex, I think Jared was there also, the 3 of them, we discussed that, and he said he was gonna go back and talk and get back to me. I did email him that day. I just didn't get a response back. And then
All right,
I never followed up, so that was my fault.
okay.
I have one more question. I had received some correspondence earlier that the building was going to be done in like the 1st of November. I've heard from Mr. Sprouse it was the end of November. Can we get some clarification on that?
I don't think the correspondence was very clear with the 1st of November, and so that's kind of why I just said the end of November.
I think we're just.
I just meant
moving-
if we were going to set a date for when it should be built, especially considering it's to prevent freezing, and by November 30th, I think you're a little late for that. I was just curious if your intention was by November 1st, and then we would have a meeting in November to address it
I
instead
mean,
of
our
December.
intentions is as quick as possible to get it done. It really comes down to manpower for contractors. The building, like I said, has been acquired, it's sitting here in Hazen. It's a matter of putting the concrete up, which as soon as we get I don't know how long the permit process is to go through, but we'll submit for the permits, and then as soon as we have the permits, we'll erect the building. And so if you want to put November 15th, because I agree with you, by November 30th, it is freezing. You know, by November 15th, the building will be done. It gives us a goal, or maybe by the next board meeting, which would be the 12th.
Yeah, that would be the second Wednesday, so I believe that sounds right.
I have the second Wednesday as November 8th.
Okay. You're shortening your time frame by doing that.
We are, but I believe, you know, like I said, we were never holding back. We want to get this done as bad as the
Excuse
next
me,
guy does for
can you,
a lot of reasons. We were never holding back. We wanted to get this done as bad as the next guy, so as quickly as we can push this through. I mean, it'll be up. If I can get it done before November 8th, it'll be done.
Thank you. Does any commissioners have any questions or discussion items? Just 1 second, Dean.
Yeah, Paul Pagotti for the record. After hearing all of this, you know, I really feel like there's a place, you know, for the fire marshal to make some comments. And if there's any way that we can put this on the next agenda for next month, I think that pushing it out and waiting for the building to be done without knowing what the fire marshal's full input is on this situation is just kind of giving an open item end until November.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mark Hyde for the record. I did a little study on your company, and we come from a position here, we want you to be successful. And I was interested in your core values and your mission statement. And one of your core values is safety. And on your mission statement's integrity. And so as a commissioner, I look at this group who they do a lot of work. And when they make recommendations that aren't followed, then I wonder about the integrity. So there's 19 requirements that are out of, there's 19 requirements total, and 7 are out of compliance. And the tallest pole in the tent would be this building, getting the building done. These other ones, I think you could take care of easily by November 8th. So my question, a couple of questions. Number one, have you submitted a plan to the building department?
We have not.
Okay. And what's the timeline on that? Submitting a plan where that can go through review and where you can have actually a permit to construct this building?
We just got the plans back for the soil samples and the testing that needs to be done for the foundation. And the
Okay.
engineer's in process of designing the rest of the model. This is a kit model that we purchased, so there was a basic plan there. But there, with the addition of offices and the things that are inside the building, the bathrooms, it had to go to an engineer. So my plan is, I will be in Omaha next Monday. My plan is to have the permit system started by next Friday.
Okay. And did you see any challenge of completing these other requirements that you're out of compliance with? By
The
November.
landscaping ones, no. The only ones that I won't complete until the building, and I don't know, honestly, by November 8th or whenever it is, the blacktop part of it being that cold. You know, that's the only thing I could see would being an issue. There'll still be parking. If we could do gravel, there'll still be ADA parking, 25 parking spots. The building we're putting in, they haven't seen it yet. It's a very, very nice building, very big. It would really be a focal point of Hazen. And, you know, that is something that we look to continue to grow the
Well,
community
that's the
on.
most important part of this plan. And I'm grateful for the clarification. I didn't know the fire marshal actually had the right to exceed the 50,000. For some reason, I was under the impression that they could make more requirements, but not exceed the 50,000. So I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
get that
I don't
cleared
want
up
Mitch to
tonight.
be, I don't want Mitch to, like Mitch, it sounds like he told us we could exceed it. That never was the conversation. The conversation was that we met the fire plan minus the building, word for word, and so we were following that. and
So
the
Mitch
building-
so if I understand you, Mitch never said you could exceed the 50,000?
As long as we did, because in that, if you look at the fire plan, it says up to 50,000.
Up to 50,000, right.
And then after 50,000 to 150,000, you have to have this. You have to have a full-time security guard, you have to have 2 water trucks. What else was there?
The building.
And the building. The deal was,
Yeah.
or what we talked about was, the building was gonna be put up, the building was first so the trucks don't freeze, the building was gonna put up, but it wasn't there. So Mitch never said, hey, you carte blanche, go. He just said, you're meeting every requirement, it's the building we don't have. And
Yeah,
we
so
thought
I-
we were all under the same
So I
page.
came into this meeting feeling like you had to have the building before you exceeded the 50,000.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know, you know, I see what it says in there.
Yeah.
But the building was just part,
Yeah,
just part of what we were doing with, as
Right.
long as we had the water trucks, which did the firefighting, and we put the big water systems in, which we did.
Okay,
Okay,
just,
I-
that's a little murky for me. I
Yeah,
just want to
I
have some
I need to,
clarification.
I need to clarify
Yeah,
this,
I've-
because Mitch
Let-
does not
Director-
have carte blanche to say something like that. What we discussed, and I believe what Meg agreed to, hey, if we're in a situation that is gonna cause us to exceed our ties, we're gonna let you know and ask if that's going to be okay. That is a temporary thing in an effort, hey, we got a problem, we got equipment down, we got this, we got that, similar to what they're going through right now. This was not a, okay, you can exceed the 50,000 because we think you're gonna put your building up. That's not what that's about. This was a temporary, yes, you can do this because you have a situation. When the situation it has been rectified, like Meg says, the tie count is going to be coming down. That's the authority that Mitch has to make a decision like that. Not, well, yeah, I think you're gonna put the building up because you've shown me a set of plans. Go ahead and start loading up on ties. That's not what that was for.
We
Thank you
never
for
just
the-
wanted, go ahead.
For the clarification, just to help Commissioner Hyde, the building is part of the SUP. Like, the SUP is not valid unless the building's there.
No, I know that.
Okay, just want to make sure we're
Yeah, no,
on the same page.
I'm solid
Okay.
on that.
All right. Director, or Dean Patterson needs to.
Dean Patterson for the record. So, as noted, Mitch has been on vacation, so having communication or hearing his communication with Omaha Track has been difficult. And of course, there was some alarm that the number of ties has doubled in a very short time without really knowing that it was going to be temporary. So it's good to hear that their intent is to get it back under control and go back down to the 50,000 limit. To be clear about the condition of approval, the 1-year mark, the building was supposed to be up. So obviously, we're here and that's not met. So ultimately, it's the planning commission's option, and it's also the staff recommendation that an additional time be extended to November. So I just wanted to kind of clarify some of those points.
And I do want to state that the fire plan does say from 0 to 50,000 ties. So when they start, begin construction of an insulated building to house the 2 dedicated water trucks. So even from 0 to 50, that construction, or I don't want to say the construction, the planning effort, some effort has to be made to move forward with that building. Thank you.
Commissioner Bundy, you have any comments?
Zach Bunyard for the record. So I understand a few of the things that were out of compliance because we're waiting on the building, right? As the landscape and the road and all that. But I believe one of the other things was the office building, even over a year ago, was supposed to be constructed, correct? As part of the SUP?
That was part of the SUP in July, correct? That was not part of the stipulated agreement.
I mean, not just talking about the number of ties or, you know, there's this many or that many, but that's where I've got a few questions on. I mean, we needed the office building besides the building for the fire trucks, and we haven't moved forward on even the office buildings or any of that. And is that only because of the state, or, because I know we weren't moving forward, you know, prior to that either?
Well, from July till November, the yard was inoperable, so we weren't focused on building. We were cleaning up burnt ties. You know, July is when the SUP went into effect. September is when the fire happened. November is when the yard opened back up for business. Then winter comes, and now, you know, now we're into summertime. When the yard opened back up, immediately we started working on the building, and I think we acquired the building sometime in February is when the building was acquired. We were ready to go with the building as soon as the frost broke. That's when Churchill County, I believe, and their part released, as far as the fire and all of that, everything was good, but the state of Nevada stepped in and said, no, we don't agree with this. We're going to take it to the next level. We want to do more investigations. So that's when our sampling people and everyone that we had hired to maintain or to manage with the EPA said we can't do anything until they come back and tell us it's clear. Because whether we put the building on the side of the road next to the water tanks, or we put the building in where the yard was, they were worried about airborne contaminants getting in and going into the soil. So they just said we had to wait. We had a lake out there, we couldn't even do any dirt work because they wouldn't let us touch the soil. So that's what we were waiting for, is just a clearance from them.
And you said you just got that 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, they cleared us 2
30th.
weeks ago. with the
And
one
did
thing.
you provide that
June
to
30th.
to
Yes.
anybody?
Have it.
It should be in there.
All right.
Yes.
So right now,
So-
we're 100% clear of all, which was great, because that was our main concern, going to your core values. Always our main concern was, after the fire, was the residents of Hazen. Did we not contaminate the water? Was the soil cleaned? And did we do a good enough job communicating with them on what's going on? And that's something Meg and her team have done tremendously.
Because I believe that was at a December meeting when we come back to this and set this in place and put the fire plan, or October meeting. I mean, most everybody's new here, but I was here for that. And that was a big stipulation, and that's why we had this review set up for now, was to see our progress in that. And I know we've made some progress, with the poles and those things that way. But, and adding the fire trucks and the night watchmen, do you see in your minds that you'll have 100% compliance when we meet in November?
I mean, I would like to say yes, absolutely.
Well,
When we had that
I
meeting.
want you to tell me what's reality, not
Well,
what
when we
we're
had that
hoping for.
meeting in December, we didn't know at that time that the NDEP was gonna come back and say they needed to do more testing. So at that point,
Yeah, and I was unaware of that.
we
so.
assumed that we would move forward. Like we said, we got that clearance on June 30th, so in 2.5 weeks, we have purchased the building. I have 2 quotes for fencing with screening. We have contractors lined up. We're basically just waiting for this meeting to then go to the contractors and say, okay, let's move forward.
As far as the
We have
fencing, too,
somebody who's erecting the building. They're already set to go.
Do you have a contract in place on that then?
with-
to build it.
With
yes.
the building?
With Clint Jensen.
Okay.
And the fencing was being done, Meg had purchased it to be installed, and then the state stepped in and said, no, we can't put anything on this property, because if the water had come back contaminated, it would have changed everything.
Yeah, and so that was my thing. So I think for everybody's sake here, so we don't come back here in November and having the same discussion that we're having today.
We won't.
On that, if there is something that you think you can't comply with, I would like to know now rather than later.
If I didn't have the building, I could say it'd be a little harder, because these buildings are so far out, but we were fortunate to get this building from a local guy. There's another gentleman that couldn't put his building up because he didn't have water on the property. So we were able to purchase that building from him and get his contractor to put it up. So, that's everything we want to do to get this done. And we want our machines inside too. It was a rough winter for us. Also, coming out of this fire, everything was exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
So
And-
we're kind of pushing this pretty fast too.
And then one more thing. How long would it take you to get to the 50,000 tie limit?
See, these rail yards are kind of ebb and flow. A rail yard like this is probably the nicest, cleanest rail yard that I've ever seen, the way it's set up now. It goes by where the crews are. Right now, there's 3 crews in this area. They're either in Nevada or California, so those ties are being put this way. Talking to the Union Pacific today, 2 of them crews are getting ready to leave, and that yellow thing that you see sitting in the siding is heading to Roseville. So I know there'll be a lull in what we're doing there. We do 2,000 to 2,500 ties a day is what we process to ship out. And then we have no scrap. So that's the one thing that we're not no more. We are not a scrap yard. We do not hold on to ties. Ties get sorted, and then they go to different locations to provide power for communities or to provide fuel for making clinket, which is concrete. So that's where these ties are en route to, is to fuel plants to be ground up and burned there. So they're not sitting, I don't think we have a tie in that yard that's been over there 90 days because the inventory is constantly turning. Right now, it's just, there's a real heavy influx of traffic. We get it. Our goal is to be right back to where we need to be by way before November. But I don't know if we'll ever be at 50,000 if we're at the thing. I mean, we'll be down below it. There was last year, prior to the fire, we were well under where we wanted to be, and then the fire had taken things out.
Yeah, no, I know that, but as part of this, you know, we've set the 50,000 limit, and we understand, I mean, if it goes to 62,000 and 60,000, and, you know, back to 48,000. But right now, we're double the limit of where we're at.
Well, and we apologize if that was something, I mean, the way we read the fire plan was 50,000 to this point, like he has stated. Everything he's saying is exactly the way it was. And then above 50,000, we had to hit these steps, which we did when we hired the full-time people, when we, you know, when we have the 2 water trucks. Because I think prior to 50,000, you only had to have 1 water truck, which we always had 2 water trucks from the very beginning. So we were kind of more extensive on the backside to make sure we would never have that issue again. Because we found water was the biggest issue. When the fire did happen, there was nowhere to get water.
And then the way it's constructed now, you probably couldn't exceed much more than where you're at right now. Even that, you could never get to 150,000 ties within the fire plan, could you?
Correct.
Yeah, the way the yard is laid out, the yard can never go above. That's why we're past the little poles. That's something, too, we've been working with Mitch, is when they designed the yard, they designed it for 150,000 ties. And then we can't get to that point, so we're just trying to figure out how to do it, whether that's hiring an engineer to look at it or whatever.
All right. Well, I'll stop here since I believe the fire marshal's here.
Meg, do you have additional comment?
I just wanted to say that as far as being over the 50,000, we keep going to that 50,000, 50,000. We're allotted 150,000. So we're at 50,000 now, we're above it, but as those decrease and we get the building in, technically we could go to 150,000.
That is correct. Yeah,
So-
that's how that is
So
stated.
this, again, is a temporary situation. The ties are over, but we're decreasing them. The building's gonna go up, so once that happens, we'll be in compliance all the way around.
The issue that I see, though, is you say you're going to decrease them, but all I've seen on monthly reports is that they're going up, and that's all we have to go off of. So I look at this saying, they haven't put the building up, they keep increasing ties, they're making no effort to bring those ties back down, because that's what I have as reports.
Yes.
And you can say that you're going to bring them down, but I don't have anything to back that up.
We've only been with a full-time security guard now for 2 months.
I don't remember when you
It was
started,
before
but
the
I'll double
holiday, it
check.
was before Labor Day or Memorial Day. So we were below 50,000 ties for 6 months.
We understand that.
Yeah.
Having a full-time security guard does not replace the
No,
fact
but that was one of the requirements
That
for
you
us
can
to go
be
over
a-
50,000.
you can only go over 50,000 if the building is in place, period. That is part of the agreement that you made last July. I can't make myself any more clear. In December, okay? So we understand we're over 50,000. You need to do whatever you need to do to get it to 50,000 or less until the building is signed off with a certificate of occupancy, okay?
I'm listening.
You understand, correct?
I do understand.
No.
So-
I don't know.
I don't
Okay, so I'm going to
understand.
say this one more time.
But the
The
building,
agreement.
the office
that-
building and that
the
building are
agreement-
not the same,
The agreement that was signed and made
right?
was you can have over 50,000 ties if that building is erected and in operation.
Not the office building.
I don't care
A
about the
building.
office building. I'm talking about the building to house the water trucks, the building that's part of the SUP. That is the building that we're talking about, okay? We understand it's summer. We understand you're not gonna freeze. But the agreement that you made and signed off on was for 50,000 ties or less with no building. Okay? Once the building is finished, that's when you can go above 50,000 without complaint to 150,000, okay?
I understand.
Does any of the commissioners have any further comment? None heard,
Mr. Chair,
I would like to-
did you want to hear from
Yes.
Mitch? Okay.
none heard. Do I put him through public comment, or do I call him as
No.
a special?
No,
He's a witness.
yeah, he can speak.
Can I have the fire marshal come forward, state your name, address for the record, and the commission, we'll start with commission, ask a couple questions, and, or maybe if you want to just update us with your knowledge of the situation. So what we know is they're here to renew their, or to extend the SUP, and we are going to sort of table the motion, or not table, but move it to November for final, because the building's not built. It has come to our attention that they're not in compliance with some of the items, but some of the items are not in compliance because the building's not built. So we understand that. But one of the issues that we have is that they are over the 50,000 limit without the building, which is tied to the SUP. So that's where we stand. They have explained to us that they've had labor shortage, we'll call it that may have contributed to the overage of the ties, but that's all we have. So we're here today to figure this out. So if you would like to comment or take questions, thank you.
For the record, Mitch Young, Fire Marshal, Fallon Churchill Fire Department, 1250 Golden Parkway. Shoot, what questions you might have, and I mean, I just came off a 14-hour drive, so if you'll give me just a little leeway to give some time to think about my answers.
Sure, Mitch. I'll give you, I think, the major question here, which is just, we have a drafted fire protection plan for the facility that outlines when, in a certain order of steps, when certain quantities of ties are allowed to be on the property from a fire protection angle. There's a separate angle that relates to planning, and that's the 150,000 limit and all of that. But from a fire protection angle, that's where those limits came from. And as you're the fire marshal and been working with them, the question everyone has is the number of ties has risen to 101,000, I think, in the last couple of days. Are you satisfied at this time that that is safe from a fire protection angle? And what do they need to do between now and November to continue to have fire protection met?
I guess my first question would have to be towards the Omaha. The question is, do you have the second water truck on site? The second fire suppression truck? So you have 3 water trucks on site,
Yes, we do.
and the second one is the same as the first,
Yes. I
Okay.
mean, not exact, but yes.
but it's set
4,000
up
gallons,
4,000
has a
gallon.
cannon. I'm sorry. Yes.
So to get over the 50,000, or to get to the 50,000, they were required to have the second water truck. Meg has contacted me, I want to say like 2 months ago, that they were gonna go over 50,000, they had just gone over 50,000, and asked about the night watch person, and I said that they would have to have that night watch person. And it was my understanding that that person was hired. I mean, I haven't been out to check overnight to see if there's somebody there. So I'm assuming that person's there over the 50,000, which was a temporary kind of deal. It was one of those, for whatever reason, we're over, but we're only gonna be over for a week or two, and we're trying to get them cleaned out. I said, that's fine, get your person. When you drop below 50,000, if you don't wanna have them there, you don't have to have them there. That was the last talk. It was about 2 weeks ago that I was going, I don't even know where I was going, through Hazen, and I noticed there's a rapid increase of the number of ties that were there. They do fluctuate quite a bit, and I noticed that the last trip through there, they were quite high, or quite full. And then I did notice that they were overflowing on the ends. So that's a violation of what the agreement was. They're all supposed to be maintained within those stacks. As far as the building goes, the building is to house the 2 trucks that are there. It's supposed to be a conditioned building, so that the trucks, the 2 fire trucks, water trucks, can be in the building, full of water, ready to go at any point in time. So that's, whether it's the office building or the second building, I don't really care. I just want to know that those trucks are being protected inside that building from freezing. So at this point, that's a lot of railroad ties. I'd like to get a look at that second water truck. And if you're anticipating moving this to November, that would be a good opportunity for me to go out, check some things out, and see what we need to do about that. But I think we have to be careful about letting this can keep getting kicked down the road. If you want my opinion on the whole thing, we need to make sure that that's in place, everything's in place the way it's supposed to be. And if you want to give them till November, I mean, that's your prerogative.
Thank you. Does the commissioner have any questions for the fire marshal?
Paul Pagodi for the record. So we're currently at 101,000 railroad ties. Me sitting here, from a community perspective, I feel as though when we went through the proceedings back in, I believe, December, there was some question on how many railroad ties were in the facility in total. And as I recall, we were saying about 75,000. Is that correct-ish? I remember asking the question. That's why I can kind of remember that number. It was around there, is what we had determined was potentially there during the fire. Now there's 101,000. It looks like considerably less than than was before the fire. So my numbers in my head are kind of skewed because I'm trying to figure out every time I drive by where we're at, where we could be. So with the increase up to 101,000 tiles and only 2 water trucks, if this were to happen again, at the time of the litigation in December, I'm pretty sure if we went back to the record, it would be 75,000 total tiles. If we were to have an issue with 101,000 tiles with 2 water trucks, where would we be at this point in time with another fire?
Part of the issue we had on the previous fire was just time and distance. The purpose of the 2 water trucks on site is to have them available. Their drivers, they're supposed to have their drivers trained up on how to operate those vehicles, how to run the pumps to fill them back up and things like that. They have set up their pump systems and everything like that. I have checked that out. They have the gallons necessary to tide them over till we get there. Their goal is to prevent extension if there's a fire. So if they can slow it down so that we don't have, or the fire doesn't have a half-hour head start on us, that's the basic reason that we're doing that. That and the separation. That's why the separation is so important, because we wanted to give plenty of separation for both radiant heat. If there's any wind, any cast off might not make it the whole way over to another set of piles. That's what got us on the last fire, was the wind came up, a lot of cast offs and things like that. So the purpose of the water trucks is, A, not to totally put it out. If they can, that's great. But primarily it's to slow the progress of that fire till we get there. And I think the 2 water trucks, if you have people driving them, they would be sufficient to tide that off to. They're set up with pretty good sized deck guns on them to put a lot of water on it fast. So if the setup's fine as far as that goes. With the bins being overflow right now, they are cutting down those margins between the bins. That's a concern to me, but we need to get them back in those bins so that area of separations stays.
I do want to just clarify one thing. So the 75,000 ties that you're talking about, I think there's some recollection that there was more than that, but I think those were inventoried ties. And if you recall, there was a huge slash pile that was kind of in the middle, and that was uninventoried, and that's why we went to the cubic yards with the fire marshal. But anyway, now there are no more slash piles. They're containing everything in these 15 bins that they're allowed to have on site. So By taking that slash pile out of the equation, I believe that the 2 fire trucks that the fire marshal has asked to be there are more than sufficient to handle the actual inventory ties that are in those stacks.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
No, that absolutely explains everything, and it makes me more comfortable on my end from that perspective, so thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a response to the fire marshal, or do you have questions for the fire marshal?
I just wanted to add one thing. Not only do we have the 2 fire trucks, or water trucks, I'm sorry, but we also have the 2 frac tanks that each hold 20,000 gallons of water. So filling the trucks would be much faster if something were to happen. So we have, with that and our water tower, we have over 50,000 gallons of water on site, ready to go.
Thank you. Does any of the commissioners have any more discussion?
Chairman, Mark Hyde for the record. My question is about reduction of that number. You're at 101 right now. So tell me what that looks like over the next few weeks.
So I can tell you right now, with the 4 operators that I have, they're averaging somewhere between 2,000 and I'd say 2,200 ties a day that they're going through. So they go through those, we send them out on the trucks, or we put them back in. Can I give you a definite answer? No, but are we trying to get it down as quickly as possible? Absolutely.
So about 60,000 in a month.
Yes, and we're working, where they said that we've gone longer, we're working on those ends first to get them back into compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have 2 questions. Are you accepting more ties at this time, or is that turned off?
We do have some sitting on the track right now.
Okay,
I don't have any coming in after that I'm aware of.
okay. And then the next question I have is, and since the fire marshal's here, it'll help us clarify, the water trucks for fire suppression are to be full of water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless there's a fire. Is that correct or incorrect?
That's correct.
Can they be used to spray water on the lot to keep the dust down?
No.
Okay, you understand that, correct? Because you'd made comment earlier, you have water trucks, but you're using them to spray for dust.
We have 3,
They have
Okay.
a separate truck that they
Okay,
use.
just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page there.
yes.
All right, thank you. Is there any other comments, discussion? The summary of this project is to extend this SUV until the November 2023 meeting for final completion, and that they have complied with all the regulations. That is what we are here to decide on tonight. Do I have a motion to deny or approve?
Mr. Chairman, Mark Hyde for the record. Based on the information provided in the staff report and heard here tonight, I move that the Omaha Track Special Use Permit be continued for review for compliance with conditions of approval and code requirements, and A, will be reviewed again at the November 23rd meeting. The company will provide monthly updates to the Public Works Director on its progress to meeting all requirements, and C, continued non-compliance at the next review may result in initiation of permit revocation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hyde, seconded by Commissioner Bunyard, to extend this SUP until November 8th, 2023. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Young. Agenda number 9, public hearing. Item A, special use permit application to expand a rail-based services facility filed by Fernley Business Park LLC for property located at 11,000 Reno Highway. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application? When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Jones, 11,000 Reno Highway.
Tom Messmer with Industrial Realty Group. I'm sorry. Got it.
Just touch the red eye.
He's got it.
I got it now. Thank you. I touched the trademark. Tom Messmer with Industrial Realty Group, 2615 Palmetto in Tustin, California.
No.
Thank you. Director Spross, would you like to summarize this application?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Spross for the record. So this application is for a special use permit. The use listing is a rail-based industrial park. It's actually an expansion. The representative is Bill Staub. The owner is the Fernley Business Park LLC and the Industrial Realty Group. The site address is 11,000 Reno Highway. That addresses will change soon to match the county system. So APN is 009-251-77, which is 105.61 acres, which is approximately 21 acres on the west side of the railroad tracks. And then APN 009-251-78, which is 58.18 acres on the west side of the tracks. The designation in the master plan is industrial and Hazen Swingle Bench planning area, and the zoning is industrial. Brief background. The site has a history of uncomplicated parcel maps, BLAs, and subdivisions. However, only 2 lots have been created. In order for the lot east of the tracks, which is the 105.61 acres, to have legal access to public road, a small portion was extended to the west side of the tracks. And Dean, maybe you can walk them through that as I am talking. I can't do both. That's where the existing facilities are sited. The remaining area west of the tracks is the west lot, the 58.2 acres, which lies along the highway and surrounds the existing facilities. This existing parcel layout will change soon due to a parcel map that the owner submitted to separate the east side of the tracks as an independent property. It now has legal access, and also establish 3 separate lots on the west side. At that time, new APNs will be established. The new railroad spur proposed in this application will not obstruct that parcel map. Previous SUPs have been approved for the property, though they have eventually gone away. There was asphalt storage back in 2005, there was metals processing in 2002, and a multi-tenant rail site for Black Gold Terminals, which was July 2018. Currently, the Crestwood Propane Tank Farm, which has got 3 very large cylinders, is using that area of the site though an SUP was not submitted for that. In 2020, the property was purchased by Industrial Realty Group, LLC, a national company specializing in rail properties. They created the Fernley Business Park, LLC, to be the current owner, which has long-range plans for major development of the larger site. They obtained an SUP on March 2021 of limited scope to do a rail track expansion and redesign and a minor expansion of the transloading area. Just for future reference, future development will require additional permitting. In addition to SUPs required in the code for different land uses, the code also requires that uses that generate high volumes of traffic obtain an SUP and perform a traffic study. The code requires that uses that handle hazardous substances to obtain an SUP, such as tanks of hazardous fluids, would require an SUP. And the code also requires uses that may impact public health and safety requires an SUP, such as storing large quantities of flammable materials outside. In summary, future facilities can require a special use permit on multiple grounds depending what those lots are used for. Excuse me. So like the Fernley Business Park's previous SUP, the current application is also of a limited scope. It adds additional track length reaching to near the south end of the property and adds another rail spur parallel to and on the other side of the buildings from the existing tracks, extending north to the access road. The proposed spur extends across the 2 existing lots. Once the approved parcel map is recorded, this will be parcel 1 and parcel 3 of that map. As with the previous SUP, the applicant indicates that 1, only transloading between rail cars and trucks is planned for the new transloading area. 2, transloading will mainly take place with mobile vehicles and equipment such as forklifts or conveyors. 3, materials that are transloaded will not be stored on site except in the vehicles. And 4, the types of materials that are handled are allowed on highways and rail lines. The applicant indicates that the new rail spur is not expected to substantially change the employees needed at the site. Employee number will change as needed with new transloading customers. There's no change to business signage, but signage may be located in Lyon County, Fernley, which would need permitting from Lyon County or Fernley. The site is served by a paved access road from US 50A, located within a public road easement, but it is in poor condition. The condition of approval for the 2021 SUP required fixing the road condition, but that condition has not been implemented. The parcel map also requires that the road to be fixed before recording the map. The applicant has recently inquired with the county about converting it to a private road easement so the road can be gated, and there currently is a gate on that road. So a few items for criteria review. Is it compatible with the existing surrounding land uses and development? The surrounding land uses along US 50A are predominantly vacant desert land. The exceptions are the Patua Geothermal and Solar Plant, which is about 3/4 of a mile north, geothermal piping and related facilities in the nearby desert, and the Resource Way commercial site is about 1,000 feet to the south. The lack of other uses makes the proposal generally compatible with the surrounding uses and development. Number two, is it in substantial conformance with the master plan and policies and will be constructed and operated in full compliance of this code? The master plan designation and zoning district for the site are both industrial. The proposed rail-based industrial park is listed as a use in the use table of the development code, but does require a special use permit. So height and setback easements, the improvements do not encroach any of the easements. The site has an existing water well, an existing septic system, and an office. Transloading will move materials from one vehicle to another without long-term storage. Extensive use of shipping containers or outside storage is not approved without further SUP review for the development. The parking code considers the proposed use to be manufacturing, which is the closest comparable use, and that requires 1 parking space per employee and 5 for visitors. The application doesn't anticipate many new employees for the transloading area. In the last SUP, the Public Works Director determined that 10 spaces are required for the rail park transloading expansion, which are already provided at the front of the office, and this application does not change that need. There are some landscaping requirements. Planning Director is recommending that the hills are adequate screens for the existing operation and the proposed expansion of the transloading area. Future development of the industrial park will require some additional landscaping, depending on what those uses are. The signage and lighting requirements, the application indicates no changes to signage or lighting. And then 3, will the project be constructed and operated in a manner that will not overburden public services and infrastructure? As mentioned before, there are no public sewer or water service available at the site, and the proposed increase in transloading area without buildings or storage will have minimal impact on the fire or police services. And number 4, does the project adequately mitigate road and traffic impacts generated by the construction and the build-out of the project? The application indicates that minimal increases in employee traffic are expected and expects truck traffic from the new transloading to increase from a high of 16 to a high of 24, which is about a 15% or 50% increase, but still only averages 3 per hour. It's assumed the existing NDOT access is adequate for the expected increase in traffic. The paved access road from the facility to the highway is in bad condition and previously had a missing section of pavement. It is recommended that the access road be upgraded as required by the previous SUP and the approved parcel map. Staff recommends that the track improvements not be authorized until the access road improvements are built or bonded as required by the parcel map. And a quick update for that, from that, I received the improvement agreement today from the applicant, which will go in front of the Board of County Commissioners for approval in their August meeting. And once that is approved, should it be approved, the applicant at that time can go get their bond. So they are in the process of providing a financial security for that. And then finally, 5, the project does not create adverse environmental impacts, including but not limited to noise, glare, fumes, and odor that may be detrimental to either public health, public safety, or general welfare of persons or property in the vicinity, or the wildlife and or natural resources. A mitigating consideration is that the adjacent users that may be impacted are distant. Hazen Town Site is 2 miles east, and Hazen Farmstead residences are at least 4,000 feet or more to the south. Commercial uses are about 1,000 or more feet to the south and have few customers or employees. There appears to be adequate separation to mitigate most impacts. The exception is dust impacts. The site soils are extremely fine and light, making them subject to disturbance and blowing in the wind. Conditions of approval for the previous SUP should be continued for this expansion, which requires that the expanded transloading area and driving paths be gravelled. Construction grading for the new rail spur and transloading areas is not planned, but such may generate dust during construction. So appropriate dust control measures must be used, and appropriate local, state, and federal permits must be obtained. So with that, the staff has recommended that this SUB be approved based on the following two conditions. First condition, conditions of approval for the March 2021 special use permit continue to apply and are applied to the proposed improvements, including consideration for future changes to parcel lines. And secondly, the rail spur construction is not authorized until the access road improvements required for the parcel map have been constructed or bonded. Again, they are in the process of bonding that. The main access road shall be maintained as a paved road, and any unpaved segments shall be paved. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure the applicant will do as well.
Thank you. Planner, Mr. Patterson?
Dean Patterson for the record. So as another update, the applicant, the company who was working on the staff that was employed by the company to work on the parcel map has also submitted an abandonment application for this driveway that we've been talking about. Their objective is to make it no longer a public road, but it will stay in place as a private access easement. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that change as well. Shouldn't affect the fact that they're going to fix the road.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any questions or other discussion now that you've heard the summary?
Yeah, Tom Messmer. So I have a great memory once I'm reminded what I heard in March of 2021. So I sat here in March of 2021, having probably worked on this business for 2 weeks, and I remember us saying that we had to pave that section that's unpaved, which amounts to, and you've been out there, 75 feet or something like that. So I'm kicking myself personally for some time over the last, 16 months or 20 months or whatever it is, not paving 75 feet of road, because we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. But I understand what you're saying. About the bond and the paving, and so, I mean, I fall on my sword on that one. That is, it wasn't mine to pave, but it was mine to make sure somebody else paved, and I didn't do that. So this expansion, just anecdotally, this expansion is, the truck traffic is 50% more. It's, we expect organic growth. When we opened this business, it was just a propane farm. We began immediately doing minerals for DICA just down the road, so transloading to and from rail cars. Immediately picked up grains and feeds for local farms, lava rock to be transported from local production mines to Michigan, and we've gotten to the point where we've gotten from the 12 to 15 or so average, seasonal, but propane cars, to where we probably have, the ability to do 25 or 30 cars a week of those other things, the other part of the business we've built. And while we're adding, 2x the amount of track that we added last time, it's not to go to 3x the business. It's largely because the rail service is, as good as they try to be, is a little inconsistent. So we're nominally building a place to get the rail cars out of the rail that's in the easement, which is under the purview of UP and BN, and get them into our property so that we can transload them in a more efficient manner. So, we add, 2x the amount of tracks. At the end, we have 3 times what we have today, but we really expect the business will grow, much more organically, and those transportation numbers, the truck numbers are my numbers, and they reflect probably a 50% growth. So, 24 trucks is 6 rail cars a day, and that would be our our kind of next 18 months growth plan.
Thank you. Bobby, do you have any comment or discussion?
As far as the truck traffic is concerned and the amount of increase, I don't think, with this expansion coming forth, it's not new transportation that's gonna be, coming onto site. It's just gonna be additional hours that we're gonna be able to operate and be able to provide the farms with more needed product, giving the farmers more frequent deliveries than just what we can provide in an 8-hour day, where we've overlapped a PM shift so that we have a 12-hour day now, so that the trucks can make 2 extra trips instead of just 3. And so that, as far as truck traffic, that's the only other added. It's not really new, it's just longer. So we're not bringing in any more outside business, you know what I mean, as far as that goes. But, and as far as the road, I've just recently got 2 quotes for that. So was that 75 feet? I don't remember I've got the square footage on it.
It's
but
just a
from
very
the
short
road
section
to
where
our-
somebody dug it up, it looks like to put through some infrastructure.
Yeah,
at
I've
one
got
time
it
before
from,
we
I've
owned
got
it.
the 2 quotes from a paving company. One was from the edge of the road to our gate. That was 7,400 square foot. And then all the way down that road, that was 36,000 square foot. So I don't know, as far as that, what were you requiring that road to be in length as far as being paved as a private road?
The entire length, and that's what we received today as far as the improvement agreement was the bond for the entire
That's
length.
what I wanted to be
And
clear
that includes not only the pavement of the road, but the borrow ditches and things like that too.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to be
Yeah.
clear on.
And I received this from Mr. Massey, who received a quote from Marty Ugaldi. So I don't know what you have there. You guys may want to talk back
Yeah,
and
no, I
forth and
just had
see if
that
you,
for-
see if you need to adjust the amount of the bond required.
Yeah, Rex does this for a living, so, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that he's got the bond in place, because I haven't spoken to him directly.
Well, he doesn't have the bond in place, so
I mean-
what needs to be done is we have an improvement agreement, which means you agree that in the period of the next year, you're going to complete this work. That duration has to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners and District Attorney Sanford. And there won't be a bonding company that will give you a bond until that agreement is in place. They want to see that. So once that has been authorized, approved, and signed, we get that back to you guys, and then you guys can get the bond, and then you issue the bond to us, and then you have a year to do it.
Any further? Okay. Does the commission have any questions?
Just one quick question. I believe this is probably more directed at Mr. Spross. Just looking at this, I looked at it, on satellite and everything. It looks like the access to this is acceptable. Is this something that NDOT needs to have any kind of approval on before going forward?
Did you reach out to NDOT? Yeah, it's an existing NDOT approach. It's a very well-constructed driveway. If you look at it, it has a pork chop in it.
You mean the intersection?
Yeah, that right there. And it is, and at one time, there was a considerable amount of truck traffic that was coming out of that industry. It was an emulsion plant at one point in time, and so it's our belief that the extra 8 trucks that might be driving there is not going to have a substantial impact. When turning east, there is an acceleration lane, and when turning west, there's also an acceleration lane. So it's a well-constructed approach and intersection.
NDOT was notified for this application, but also in the last application, and at that time, they said their facilities were adequate.
I guess I could have said that.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Just so you know, excuse me, we'll keep the recommended condition number 2 in place because it's not been completed, so it will be part of the motion today. Okay? Is there any public comment? None heard. I ask the commission to make a motion for the findings for this matter.
Paul Picodi for the record. Based on the previous adopted findings made for this project, I move to approve the special use permit application for Fernley Business Park to authorize an expansion of a rail-based industrial park on APN 0. Oh,
Findings.
sorry. I apologize. The motion should be modified by the planning commission as needed. Based on the information provided by the application in the staff report and heard tonight, I move that the findings have been met for conformance with the criteria found in Churchill County Code 1608.080 Hotel on APN 009-251-77 and 78.
Motion's been made for the findings by Commissioner Picodi, second by Commissioner Hyde. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Now I ask for a motion for the decision.
Zach Bunyard for the record. Based on the previously adopted findings made for this project, I move to approve the special use permit application for the Fernley Business Park to authorize an expansion based on the rail-based industrial park on APN 009-251-77 and 78. This approval is subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Motion has been made for the decision by Commissioner Bunyard, second by Commissioner Picodi. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. So 10-day appeal period, and if nothing's heard, they'll contact you. All right?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Agenda item 9, public hearings, item B. Bill 2023-A, ordinance 32, title and ordinance amending provisions of Title 16 Consolidated Development Code of the Churchill County Code. Summary of this item: this ordinance amends provisions of Title 16 concerning the Consolidated Development Code. It amends the use table for zoning districts to clarify the zones in which certain vehicles and vehicle accessories may be sold, establishes the permitting process under which certain vehicle and other accessories may be sold, and provides for other matters related thereto. Director Spross, do you have?
I'll go ahead and take this one, Mr. Chair. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This ordinance is brought to you for your consideration and recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The essential function of this ordinance is to provide some granularity between smaller vehicles, passenger vehicles, RVs, and then commercial and construction vehicles. At present, our code and the use table provide two layers or points where you would determine where zoning is allowed for a vehicle. Small vehicles, passenger vehicles are zoned for a zoning review in the C1, C2, and industrial areas. Anything other than that, any large vehicle, including RVs, moving trucks, construction equipment, commercial vehicles, are all in the large vehicles, and those require a special use permit and are only allowed in the C2 and industrial zones. We've received a couple applications or questions as it would go and relate to expanding this use. And staff has reviewed it and determined that adding a second or third category that would address specialized vehicles, specifically RVs, motorhomes, campers, moving trucks, dump trailers, and horse trailers, and placing them in a separate zone than the commercial vehicles and construction vehicles more adequately represents the needs of the community. And so the recommendation at this time is to create three sections. The small vehicle section has been amended to be called the standard vehicles. This would include passenger vehicles, ATVs, motorcycles, trailers, and the like. Those will remain a zoning review in the C1, C2, and industrial zones. This shouldn't have any impact on people who are already performing those uses. We'll have a new section for specialized vehicles or trailers. This is the RVs, motorhomes, campers, moving trucks, dump trailers, and horse trailers. These will all be set to have administrative special use permits in the C1, C2, and industrial zones. Administrative special use permit is sort of in between a zoning review, which is something that the planning department would just review and make sure setbacks and things like that are met. This would allow for conditions to be placed by the planning director, but it wouldn't come in front of the planning commission. And then the large vehicles would be amended to be a commercial or construction trailer and equipment section. And this would be largely the same, but removing some of those medium-sized objects. Commercial vehicles, cargo containers, large construction equipment would remain inside this category, and that would still be a special use permit. Some of these uses are currently not described in our code, such as horse trailers and dump trailers, and so we're trying to get ahead of that to a certain degree as well.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion from the commission? Any further you'd like to add? None heard. I ask the commission for a motion of the findings.
Zach Bunyard for the record. Based on the information provided in the packet materials, in the staff report and heard tonight, I move that the findings have been met for conformance with criteria found in Churchill County Code 16.0 or .08.060E2 regarding the county code amendment to modify the use table of definitions for vehicle sales and rental.
The motion has been made for the findings by Commissioner Bunyard, seconded by Commissioner Hyde. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Now I ask the commission for a motion of the decision.
Zach Bunyard for the record. Based on the previously adopted findings made for this project, I move to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve Bill 2023-A, amending the Churchill County Code to modify the use table and definitions for vehicle sales and rental.
Motion for the decision has been made by Commissioner Bunyard, seconded by Commissioner Vacoti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Agenda item 10, action item, none. Agenda item 11, consent agenda, item A. Termination of special use permit previously granted by Marlene Homes for property located at 4755 Silver Sage Lane. I have a motion to accept this.
Zach
termination.
Bunyard for the record. I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Motion been made by Commissioner Bunyard, second by Commissioner Hyde to accept the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item 12, public comment. None heard. Agenda item 13, adjournment. This meeting is adjourned, 8:59 PM. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Paul.